Alright. Today I'm going to be discussing a little bit about League of Legends. And how strategy in League of Legends relates to chess. But first things first, a brief introduction to League of Legends. So League of Legends is a team game played between two 5-person teams on a map that looks something like this. Right here. And the goal of the game is for you to destroy your enemy's nexus. That's this little circle right there. And right there. And not let them destroy yours. If you destroy the enemy nexus, you win the game. To do that, you gotta destroy some other things along the way. And so, in doing this, there are 3 main lanes, they're called, on the map. And they're routes to the enemy's base and their nexus, okay? There's the top lane, referred to as top. There's the middle lane, referred to as mid. And then there is the bottom lane, referred to as bottom. And then in between the lanes, seen here, 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 and here, are the areas known as the jungle. Okay? So going up the lanes, there are these creatures called minions, and they're basically AI-controlled little units that just walk towards the enemy's base, and they hit each other. Okay? And by being the person to score the killing blow on the enemy minions, you can earn gold, which you use to buy items and make yourself more powerful and ultimately win the game. In the jungle, there are jungle monsters that give you this gold and experience to allow you to level up and get more powerful spells in order to defeat your enemy and once again win the game. So typically speaking, the metagame has developed to where typically speaking, a single person will go top, a single person will be a roaming jungler, a single person will go mid, and then 2 people, referred to as an AD carry and a support, will go in the bottom lane. And the AD carry their job is to carry the team to victory, while the support's job is to support the AD carry and also the rest of the team, and allow the rest of the team to carry them to victory. But this meta where, the ADC and the support go in the bottom lane, well, it's not always perfect. It's not always the optimal strategy. And there are a lot of reasons behind that. One of the big ones is something known as a lane matchup. So, what a lane matchup is where, lane matchups just refers to the strengths of one particular champion, which is the characters you play, compared to another, or 2 in the case of bot lane. And in some cases, lane matchups can heavily favor one side. So that leads to potential changing in the early game strategy. But before any early game strategy can be changed, teams have to go after something known as vision on the map. And that's done by placing wards. And so teams go early on and they try and place wards in strategic locations throughout the map, like here, sometimes you have one like either up here, down there. And basically they try and get wards deep into enemy territory, and in order to spot what the enemy's doing in the early parts of the game. It's kind of like, in chess, without wards, or making early game movements without wards it's kind of like playing chess without seeing the positions of any of the enemy pieces. You can really only guess where the enemy is, so because of that, you want to ward and allow for the most optimal strategy to be chosen. So that is, definitely a difference between League of Legends and chess in terms of strategies, that you don't always know everything in League of Legends. But, teams on the competitive level get pretty good at warding, so they kind of know things and figure things out. So once they ward, they got to figure out, right, well, how do I deal with a bad lane matchup? Well, it took a while to figure out, but teams eventually started doing something known as a 2 versus 1 lane swap. And what that is it's where the AD carry and support for one team will go to the top lane. And the top laner will go to the bottom lane. And that means that your top laner is going to be facing a 2v1 lane. But so is the enemy top laner. So why would we want to lane swap? I mean, it sounds like it's just bad. It's just as bad for you as it is the enemy. Because, while your bottom lane, your duo lane might get ahead, your solo lane is theoretically going to get behind. But this once again comes into champion matchups. Sometimes, some top laners, some champions that are played in the top lane, are pretty good at doing this 2v1 thing, and they can handle it pretty well, but others can't. So sometimes you don't swap lanes to avoid a bad lane matchup in terms of the duo lane, but rather to punish the enemy top laner for picking a champion that is not good at the 2v1, while you picked one that is, so that your top laner can gain a lead relative to the enemy top laner by denying them gold and experience. And with this, you have a couple other strategies that come in. First things first, there's something known as a rotation. And what a rotation is it's when you quickly move, it's when you see an opening and you say, all right, I don't see any enemies nearby top lane. I'm going to send my jungler and my duo lane up there and try and push this tower, which is an objective, and before they can react, and that's what's known as a rotation. And so rotations come into play in lane swaps, but also you have what's known as you can have a freeze and then a slow push, or a freeze or slow push and then a fast push, and those are two opposite things. So what a freeze is it's where you try to get the minions so that they are dying approximately in the middle of the lane, so like right there, and that basically forces the enemy top laner, if they want to farm in this 2v1 lane, farming being the term for getting the last hit on minions and earning gold and experience, so if they want to get that golden experience, they have to overextend themselves and potentially open themselves up to attack from to a surprise attack known as a gank from your jungler. And so that can be bad for the enemy team. So, it puts their top laner behind. But by the same note, you can also do what's known as the fast push, which is where you basically say, all right, we have 2 people in this lane, and we want to take this tower, which gives global gold upon being destroyed. That is gold for all of your team. And we want to take it fast so that we can gain more control over the map. And so you can push it down really fast, knock it down really fast with your 2 people versus the 1 in the lane. And going along with this, you also have some champions that are very weak in lane swaps. That can't 2v1 well at all. And so because of this, some champions will do what's known as the double jungle. Basically what this is it's where they'll hang out with the jungler for the first part of the game. And by hanging out with the jungler, they'll share experience with the jungler from the jungle monsters that the jungler kills to get gold and experience. And they'll basically help themselves get not as far behind as they would have if they would have been stuck in that bad 2v1 matchup. Now, some other strategies that can come into this are known as the tower dive, and this is basically where you go to perform a gank, that's a surprise attack, on a champion that is in a poor 2v1 matchup, and you dive under their tower, which normally protects them, by shooting at people who attack them under it, and you attack them anyway, and soak up the damage and then try and kill them before you're killed by the tower. And then a final important strategy that really comes into play here is what's known as an invade. And that's basically just where you go into the enemy jungle and try and take their neutral monsters. So all of these strategies, like gambits in chess, have potential risks and rewards to them. The real rewards and risks are kind of opposite, in that the rewards are you can get an objective lead, a gold lead, you can gain more pressure across the map, and you can gain an experience advantage for your whole team. But if you mess up, you can give that to the enemy team. And so that's really what the purpose of a lane swap is, though. It's to try to get yourself ahead in spite of an unfavorable matchup. And so that's basically the concept of a lane swap in League of Legends. And as you can see, as those of you who are somewhat familiar with chess may think, it sounds a little bit like a gambit in chess, which is quite accurate. And that's really what the goal here is to show, is that different openings are very similar to some of the basic fundamentals in chess openings.